What I'm sitting next to right now is quite possibly the best small EV you can buy here, where I am, in Malaysia at least. And it might stay that way for a while to come. This is the BYD Atto 2. The date of this recording is early September 2025, and we are due to get some pretty big additions to our selection of electric cars. The Proton eMAS 5, and probably more importantly, the in-house developed Perodua EV. Right now, best guess is that it's called the QVE or QEV. Anyway, they're all rushing into that entry EV space, all due to be priced below 100,000 ringgit and therefore be much more accessible to people like you and me. But tell you what though, they might have lost the battle already before it's begun, because the Atto 2 here is seriously impressive. This thing is priced at 100,000 ringgit, not 1 cent higher or lower. It's an oddly rounded figure, isn't it? That's because 100k is exactly the floor price set by the government for all CBU EVs to be sold in Malaysia. Unless, of course, you establish your own factory here and assemble your EV in Malaysia. And that is exactly what BYD has announced. Even now, this car probably won't cost you 100,000 ringgit to own. There are discounts and rebates, just ways to get around this price restriction. So even if 100k is more than what you want to stretch to for this car, it won't be. Most likely. Think of it as a first shot in the war that's about to kick off of the starter entry-level EV. And it's going to be an interesting fight, at least here in Malaysia, because you have so many prominent automakers making beginner EVs, city EVs, under 100,000 ringgit. And this car is going to lead the charge because this car arrives sooner. And from what I've gathered so far, I think BYD has the bigger gun. This does not look cheap. It looks tight, it looks together, even a little bit athletic. It looks like a sports shoe to me. Full LEDs up front, nice front end, not overly plain. Only 3 color options though, and this is the breeze green. And how long before they offer it in metallic black like the Atto 3? It's even got these side skirts or side guards, whatever it is, but it makes it look like sneakers. The side in profile. Besides that, you have a very classic SUV shape, a pretty flat bonnet, very tall glass house relatively, and even blacked out A-pillars. And at the rear, I like the fact that BYD kept it really restrained, because what do you have? Nothing to offend you really. You have a moderately sized roof spoiler over here. You have a full width light bar, which has a really nice, interesting light signature design, a helix shape. At night, looks really good. And besides that, you have BYD, quite a moderately sized logo size over there, not a full script like on the Atto 3, build your dreams, which was lame. Atto 2 down here, and that's it. And you've also got 17-inch wheels running Westlake tires. And there's a logo down here called MNS, which stands for mud and snow, meaning this tire is definitely not made to handle our weather or heavy rain and just bright sunshine and heat and humidity everywhere. In fact, it'd be funny if that logo was switched to S&M instead. What is it with BYD offering really odd tire choices for their lower end models? It began with the Atto 3, which came with Atlas Batman A51 tires. Now it's on Continental, so good for that. And then the Dolphin came with Ling Long tires, and this one too is a bit of a budget cut. Hopefully they'll change it out soon. In fact, why would you even get the Atto 3? Yes, it's bigger, 145mm longer, 45mm wider, but the Atto 2's wheelbase is just 100mm shorter or less long, and the Atto 2 is actually taller by 60mm, and it doesn't have a sunroof to get in the way of headroom. And while I'm here, let's mention Practicality, because this has a 400-liter boot that is 40 liters less than the Atto 3, and of course you can actually move the floor further down if you want to swap more space with a flat load floor. No spare tire, you get a tire repair kit. It's pretty standard, but you fold the seats down and you get 1,340 liters. That's the exact same capacity as the Atto 3. It doesn't need a power boot though, because usually I wouldn't mention it, but this is a weirdly heavy tailgate. And plus we know the eMAS 5, at least in atas variant, has a power boot. Under the bonnet, see, manual, kena angkat macam tu. Come on lah, even Cherry Tigo Cross has struts. Come on BYD. Could they have fitted a frunk under all this stuff? Yes, they could, because a lot of space up in here. Underneath all that though is a 177 PS single electric motor driving the front wheels with 290 Newton meters of torque. That is way more power and torque than you would get in the eMAS 5. 116 PS, I think, that car. This car will do 0-100 in 7.9 seconds. It's got a blade battery somewhere in there, of course, 51 kilowatt hours. That's good for about 350 kilometers of range, WLTP. And it's got a 7 kilowatt onboard charger, not the fastest, but in this car with a smaller battery, it should be fine. A full charge in about 8 hours. The DC charging is 82 kilowatts, which BYD says will take about 28 minutes. But the thing is, they calculate their figure as quoted and advertised as being 30% to 80% instead of the usual 10% to 80%. So let's get scratching. There's a feeling of weirdly, well, not weirdly, but unexpected solidity in here. That's the first impression, because it doesn't really wow me in any way, but I feel the materials, they're not hard, but they're not soft either, but they feel quality and well put together. It is a sea of black and very dark gray in its interior. Oh, with a little bit of green stitching over here. The steering wheel is the definition of boring because it looks really boring. The feel is quite good actually. Also the same greenish stitching, but otherwise all just gray and pale, whatever, black. The seats, we know BYD makes good seats because they're very squishy. You had Napa leather in the seal, but you have leatherette all over this car for the seats. The upholstery is supportive, it is squishy, but not too squishy, you don't really sink into it. Supportive as well, sort of like this kind of semi-sporty bucket seat. It is supportive, it is comfortable. I like them. And of course, they are electrically adjustable. Same for the passenger seat as well. It's simple, but it's effective and mostly free of gimmicks. It's like BYD is maturing. I can see that and I like it because it's a far cry from what we used to get, the crazy stuff that we saw in the Atto 3's interior. You know, the guitar strings, the fishy aquatic color scheme, the gym fitness inspired design. I mean, look at this door card, guys. It is solid, it is simple, it is effective. Used to be that you have on the Atto 3 all these guitar string array down here. None of that stuff. You have nice soft touch points over here, buttons that feel good, and physical controls for your wing mirrors. Are you listening, Jeku? And down here, a fully wide open door card storage area. Can fit anything long that you want to as well. Nice going. And look at this, you have air conditioning vents over here, manually operated, and this motorized electric stuff. It's just how it works, okay? Speaking of sturdy, this is also actually quite sturdy. And look at this hinge, whatever they use for the center cubby, is so solid. Unbelievable. Center cubby is nice and deep, very practical. Ahead of that, you have, look, cup holders, pretty nice, very big, right where they should be. Ahead of that, the row buttons, very useful stuff. You have mode switching, you have emergency light, you have auto hold, start, stop, you have regen control over here, and even a little knob to control the volume for the stereo. Ahead of that, a 50-watt wireless charger. Your smartphone can live there. Next to that, the storage area for your wallet, whatever you want down here. USB-A and USB-C down there. The steering wheel, for all I give it for being boring looking, it's actually quite good to use because the buttons do feel solid. They have a nice tactile feel to them, and they have this same kind of knob over here to adjust volume, and they do feel pretty good. They're not metal, but they have a nice tactile feel to it. It controls either an 8.8 driver's display up front over here or a 13-inch display for infotainment. Of course, there's Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and being a BYD, of course, it rotates for no good reason. And lastly, I gotta mention the speakers because I don't know how they sound this good. I know the Seal uses like Infinity branded speakers and they sound pretty good too, but this sounds also pretty good. You have 8 speakers in this car and they're punchy, and the bass is good and the treble is good and the separation is pretty good as well. I was driving, for a little context, okay? I was driving a Mazda CX-60 like last week, and that had Bose speakers, and I couldn't get the sound as good as I do with this Atto 2 for a lot less money. Throughout the interior, you have 6 airbags and a full ADAS suite. Well, full minus blind spot monitoring. You have AEB, you have intelligent cruise control, you have lane keep assist, but not blind spot monitoring, one of the foundational features of even the most basic ADAS suite. I mean, who do you think you are? Honda? Oh, and did I mention these front seats are actually ventilated? Look, the back door doesn't really open like quite 90 degrees or close to, but it's still pretty wide if you want to get things like a child seat in here, no issues. Nice solid thud. Look, the floor is completely flat, but it does have a raised level compared to the front. So you do have a bit of a gap when you sit down over here. My thighs, yeah, a little bit of a gap, but it's not too bad. Comfortable seats still, just like the front seats over there. You have perforations in here too, but they are not ventilated, unfortunately. I think you gotta go a bit further up the BYD range to get that feature in the back seats. Quality-wise, it does have a little bit of a step down in quality in terms of materials and soft touch stuff for the door card, for example, but everything else, you know, touch points are nice and soft and squidgy, and it does feel like a very airy cabin. I haven't been in an Atto 3 for a while, but I can't really tell a difference in space. This seems to me like a completely in the same category of spaciousness interior-wise as the Atto 3, so why go for that instead of this? This just seems like a more rounded car. These seats have a little bit of bolstering, so you won't be, you know, shoved too far apart when you sit at the back here. Then you have armrest, which comes down, some cup holders in there, single air conditioning vent a la JQ. And over here you have a USB-A, USB-C port. And what else can I tell you, really? Besides the fact that I'm quite impressed so far. This is a really practical all-round car. Not just a city car, but an all-round car. Would I recommend it for people who, you know, drive out of town a lot? Definitely not an EV. But if you're gonna go around town, pick up the kids, you know, commute to work, go to school, whatever you want, this car fits the bill. All right, windows. Does it get, wow, it goes all the way down, at least almost all the way down. What else? Oh, there is no tonneau cover for the rear hatch over here. So, you know, whatever you have in the back, in the boot, it'll make some noise. And if it does, it'll just reverberate through the cabin. First of all, what it gets right. It gets right the handling and composure, because this thing does feel composed. So the Atto 3 was one of my first EV experiences and one of my first Chinese car experiences, and they weren't exactly super positive in terms of the driving. It was kind of floaty. It didn't really want to take corners very well. Yeah, it just had flaws, and you could point them out. You can go like, well, I could live with that. I could just not really, you know, drive it very hard or expect any kind of fun from it. But this is pretty good. The way they tune the suspension, it feels composed. It feels like it wants to turn in. It feels steady. You know, you go to higher speeds, even beyond the speed limit, it does feel steady. It feels solid. And that's also a good thing to say about the car's build quality entirely, because this car feels solid to sit in as well as to drive. It doesn't get rattled. It doesn't get shook up by other things. It doesn't get, like, you go over these expansion joints in smaller cars or cars that are engineered a little bit more, I don't know, not as well. And you can feel the whole car just rattle. This car doesn't. It feels composed. And you go over really sharp bumps like the one you find in all these new parking lots these days, the really sharp ones, like the plastic ones. This thing just takes it in its stride. It's comfortable still, but it does feel like it wants to respond to you. And in a starter EV that's made for the city, I think that is really important, because you want to thread it around. You want to feel confident enough. This is not a sports car, of course. This is not the Seal. The Seal is definitely by far way better handling than this. But this doesn't do a bad job either. Maybe you put better tires on that. The Westlake's on this. I don't know if I trust it. I couldn't really trust the way the Atto 3 was driving. This car you can. It just has that kind of get up and go quality to it, because it does have a lot of power for its size, a lot of space for its size. It looks pretty good. I think it looks better than the other EVs coming out so far, with the exception of the Perodua QVE, which we have no idea yet what it looks like actually. But from the renders and all the concepts and whatever, it does look like a pretty good coupe-ish looking, you know, hatchback crossover. But this thing also has its merits as, you know, a crossover, because it doesn't look like a training shoe, and I like that. It's charming. The eMAS 5, again, we don't really know what it looks like. Kind of we do, because we have the Geely Jingguan, the Starlight, I think it's called, or whatever. The Geely version of it. And for all intents and purposes, there's not really that much difference you could point to between that and the eMAS 5 that's launching here. But I'm not a fan of the Geely version either because it's a very soft looking EV. It reminds me a lot of the Aura Good Cat. And I've got my issues with the Good Cat as well. It was a pioneer here in Malaysia in terms of being one of the first EVs to launch and at an attractive price for that time. But it just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't hold up, I guess. And the Xingyuan, the Starlight, the eMAS 5 has that kind of like soft thing to it. This has more character. This feels a lot more, I don't know, just fun. You do get more pronounced wind noise in any EV, okay, because you're just more aware of it. There's just silence everywhere. If you don't have the stereo on, you just hear it more often. It's not terrible, but you do hear it. For the price, I can't really complain because this is a 100,000 ringgit car and it's pretty refined, all things considered. Wind noise, yes, it's there. Tire noise, this tire actually, for all the grief I give it, not giving me any confidence in the wet, it is pretty quiet. It's comfortable as well because, yeah, I don't know if this is suspension tuning only or these tires contributing to the comfort, but, comfort, I have no issue with this car. It's very comfortable. It is fairly like tire roar as well. I don't really hear that much of it. It is more pronounced because, again, it's an EV. But all things considered, I think if I was to fit these tires on a normal car with an engine, I think I would have like no real complaints about tire roar either. I think it depends a lot on the surface you're driving on and stuff, but I would definitely change the tires again. Just do that, please. Average consumption. This car is pretty efficient. This car I know has a 50 kilowatt hour battery, which for this size of car at this price is pretty decent. So you have 51 kilowatt hours, okay? And 7 kilowatt AC, 82 kilowatts DC, WLTP range 350. So I think definitely the use case of this car is going to be around town. It'll be going to work and back. You want something easy to park. You want something efficient. You want something that is a little bit funky. You want something that is easy to thread around traffic. And in terms of just get up and go, this thing goes. I'm in eco mode right now and I have no real, I don't really feel I need to put it into normal mode, even sport mode, because I can gradually accelerate quicker than any car of this size at this price. There are use cases for EVs, I admit that, even though I'm not an EV person myself, but I admit in the city, they're quite unmatched. They're so responsive, they're so efficient. They're so good at just sitting in traffic because they use barely any energy anyway, because you're running an engine, it's just idling there, burning fuel. In this case, you're just running the air conditioning in this car. Only when you begin moving and then you use the electric motor and the battery. Otherwise, it's just kind of sitting there, cooling you off and playing your music, I guess, and operating the screen and whatever else it does. And that being said, I haven't really kind of babied this car. I've been driving on highways, driving it on, in the middle of KL, PJ, really congested roads and everything. For the past 50 kilometers, I've been averaging, I guess, according to this, 13.7 kilowatt hours per 100 km. Now, I don't know how much that works out to in terms of like projected range can actually achieve its WLTP claim. I don't know. But so far, it's been driving all these EVs, I have a gauge of, okay, you know what? This car has this much range and this size of battery. By this point in my time with it, I should have this much charge left, like say 60%, 70%, 50%. This, I've always maintained more charge, according to the battery meter over here, more charge than I expect to have. Because this car probably can't do the long distance trip. Maybe to Malacca, maybe to Ipoh. I don't know. Depends on how many people you're carrying with you, how much cargo you have, how you drive, all those things. But this definitely is a city car. And I mean, remember that the other competitors too coming along should have about the same range, around 350, 320, maybe touching 400 kilometers of range. But can you actually achieve that range on the regular? I don't know. Maybe, probably not. And okay, I want to touch on the regen braking because there's only two modes in this thing. There is standard, which is practically nothing because I can't really feel, I come off the throttle and I can't feel any regen, any dynamo effect going on. It's just coasting. Or unless it's harvesting a very minuscule amount of energy, I don't know. But then you got a high, And you do have some regen. It feels like a medium, actually, level of regen, because it does slow down the car, you know, at moderate speeds, but then you go below 40 kilometers per hour and the regen seems to stop. The ADAS, look, it has a full suite of ADAS, except one glaring thing that it doesn't have, which is blind spot monitoring. You could argue, you know what, it's a really, really small car. It's not really that small. There are other cars, you know, in the B segment that are way smaller than this, but relatively small car. It's a relatively small car. All I gotta do, I have no issue with doing this, you know, like doing that, craning my neck a little bit to see what's in my blind spot potentially. But this could use blind spot. I mean, every car could use blind spot. There's always going to be, that's why you call it a blind spot. You have no idea what is there. You could be wrong. And it's good to have the safety net. Why remove that? All it is really is a big proximity sensor, the sense if something physical is there where you can't see it. I know Honda is infamous for not including that in things like every car they have except the EN1, but BYD definitely should have that. Blind spot is just a weird omission, man. It's the same thing with the Jetour dashing, having every basically ADAS feature that I really would expect, except AEB, the most life-saving feature that you could have in any ADAS suite. This does have AEB, this does have intelligent cruise, this does have, you know, lane keep assist, but not blind spot. When you use intelligent cruise control, you use lane keep assist to actually keep you in the lane. So it's, you know, level 2 semi-autonomous. This thing does not want to do that. I turn it off right away. It is not worth using because it is jerky. It just pulls on the steering wheel too hard. It slows down too abruptly. It accelerates too abruptly. It's like driving. It's like asking a learner driver to operate an EV. That's the brain it defaults to when it goes on intelligent cruise. So turn it off right away. That's my recommendation. Leave everything off except AEB. That's the sweet spot for me, because this car otherwise has no real annoyances. Other Chinese cars, you go into it, there's all these chimes and music and overly excitable beeps going on and bongs everywhere. This car doesn't. You step into it and it's just get up and go and drive, and then you realize, hey, this thing handles pretty well, kind of fun to drive. And then it looks kind of funky, and it just endears you more to it, and it feels quality inside, and it has all the features. Literally, besides blind spot, I can't think of a single thing in this car that I would really want. Sunroof, I really don't care about that. At some point, let's do a drag race between the eMAS 5, this car, the TQ Wuling Bingo, and Proton QVE. I think this thing would win hands down. Not a question of it. And that begs the question too, how much could this actually cost? Because this 100,000 ringgit, you know, floor price is kind of a tongue-in-cheek way of BYD saying, well, you leave us no choice, so I guess we have to sell you a car at 100k, you know, 100k.00, not a cent more, not a cent less. So how much can you actually sell this for if you locally assemble it, which they will be doing? You know, I mean, not like next month, but, you know, in the near future, they will be, you know, locally assembling this. And how much could that be? If you consider, if you take the conservative estimate of 85k for this car, locally assembled, okay? And think about how much it gives you, specification-wise, and in terms of just the feature completeness of the car, and how it's built, and how it handles, and how it drives, and all that kind of stuff. And then figure out, what can Perodua and Proton do with potentially, or TQ Wuling Bingo, what it could do with a car potentially costing just as much money. And among the cars that are coming in to fill that gap, this, so far, is the most impressive. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about this. It is going to rain, and it rained just now a little bit, so that's why we didn't film like a proper like outro. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below about the BYD Atto 2. I think it's one of the best EVs you can buy at any price these days right now, because I would this is the EV that I would buy if I really wanted an EV. And I'm not saying that I do really want an EV, but if I had to buy an EV for the best use case of an EV, this is the one right now. And I'm not sure that whatever Proton and TQ Wuling and whatever other automakers come in, you know, trying to fill this sub 100k EV gap, can really impress me more than this. It'll have to be really special, and we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I'm excited. We'll see how that goes. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you in the next video.